Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I am your host, Ron Dichter. Today is a very exciting show. We have a really great guest with us, Corey Corpodian. He is an orthodontist-turned-entrepreneur. And if you hear me say that again, I will be very shocked, as that is a unique angle. He's also the founder and host of Unleash Success and the author of Emotional Fitness. Corey, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ron. Appreciate it.
You bet. I always like to kick the show off talking about Projecting Grandeur because people, when they hear that title, they either think I'm French or I just mashed a couple words together to come up with kind of a unique saying. But when you hear the term Projecting Grandeur, what does that mean to you in terms of showing up authentically versus performing success?
I love that question because I feel like if I'm performing success, I'm doing what I was told I should be doing, and I might actually achieve some success. But to me, projecting grandeur is about when I show up authentically, I feel energy coming to me. I feel fulfilled. I feel purpose driven. I'm still taking action, achieving success, but the way that I show up is it feeds me energy, and life gives me that energy so I can go out and I don't know, you're in flow state almost, right? Where everything happens the way it should. Things are going great. You're making connections, you're building opportunity versus, just showing up and kind of doing the everyday habits of success where, it's a little bit of a grind.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about flow state and all that, like you have that kind of flow mentality. I feel like you just have these, natural string of thoughts that naturally pushes that energy to you. But I love listening to that. And it's a great answer. I'm always interested in what people say on that. Well, let's talk about this practicing orthodontics to building Unleash Success. Like, I just need to understand what happened there, what pushed you to make that change, and really building this broader platform for mindset, performance. Like, what's that all about?
So for me, it came out of desperation. Like most great things, it was a painful moment. So, like many of your listeners, I grew up where I was given a blueprint for success. And I was told, like we just talked about, what I should be doing. And what I should do is become a doctor or a lawyer was kind of the blueprint I had. And most people's blueprints, something like go to school, work really hard, get a job, retire, and enjoy life. And I woke up at 26 years old as a board certified orthodontist thinking, man, is this all there is to life? And I had accomplished a lot. I had achieved a lot of success on paper. There's a quote from Tony Robbins that says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And that really just painted exactly what my life was like. I had all the success, but I wasn't fulfilled. And so I started searching for answers. As educated as I was, I never read a personal development book in my life. It wasn't in, the science background, the biology degree reading list. And so I started going into physical fitness, and I was competing at the time to go get my pro card. And I noticed this mole on the side of my chest. So I go to the dermatologist. I'd studied anatomy for years, but because of insurance and things like that and moving, I just wasn't paying attention to myself. All of a sudden, the dermatologist said, we need to biopsy that. I come back a week later. She sits me down. She says, it's melanoma. And melanoma is a very scary cancer. It's the fastest growing cancer. Intellectually, I knew that. But emotionally, I was like, can we just put this off? I'm trying to get my pro card. I was so mentally, like my mindset was so down. I was depressed. I just wasn't in the right frame to even hear that. I said, can we wait like 6 months? She said, 6 months, you'll lose half your chest. In a year from now, you might not even be here. And that for me was my memento mori, which means remember that one day you will die. At a young age, I hadn't really faced that moment. And I thought, wow, like if I hadn't come in on kind of on a whim, I wasn't really like worried about it. I just like, hey, I should get checked out. I might not even be here having that conversation. And so from that point, I was like, I've got to change my life. And how am I going to do that? I had no idea. I didn't know where to search. So I started reading books. I went to seminars. And basically 6 months later, I met the woman of my dreams, who's now my wife and mother of my 2 kids, bought my dream beach house in Newport Beach, doubled my income while working less. And everybody goes, Corey, how did you do this? And I was like, well, I went to the seminar, I read this book, and I just took action. Like, Corey, I did all the same things you did, went to the same seminars. What's the difference here? And over time, I realized what that was emotional fitness. It was these daily mental and emotional exercises, because I believe emotions are what drive us towards our goals or away from our goals. And if, it's not about, I'm not trying to display my emotions, but there is something about being vulnerable. There is something about being aware. There is something to be said about being focused and driven. Like, do you cultivate these positive emotions, or do you let them control you and drive you away? And so that's how Emotional Fitness, the book, became about. And as I started to do this, I listened to podcasts. I wanted to start a podcast. I started just going towards that life that I felt this was going to bring me more energy. Talking about emotional fitness, talking about how you can change your entire life in a single moment with a single decision, seeing people transform before your eyes, that drives me. Learning how people become massively successful and build million or even billion-dollar businesses, like Tom Bilyeu from Impact Theory was on my show, or Monty Moran, who was the CEO of Chipotle. These guys, just learning from them, I just found myself like, this is what I was put on this earth to do. And so I kept leaning into that more and more. And ultimately, that's kind of how it all transformed for me. But it came out of a moment of desperation.
Wow. That's a crazy story. And I'm glad you went in, because my goodness, like, crazy. One visit to the doc and changes everything. But I want to talk. So when I was doing my research for this, I was really enjoying kind of reading about your books and the talks that you've done, and you really emphasize, this emotional fitness, and that's obviously the cornerstone of a lot of what you talk about. And obviously we only have a limited time for the show here, but can you just high level help me understand, what does a week of emotional fitness look like in like practice? Like, what does that mean?
It's a great question. There are mental exercises as well as physical exercises. So there are 3 decisions our mind goes through every moment to understand our reality, right? We're looking at, what are we focusing on? Is it raining outside and I'm focusing on the fact that rain's ruining my day, or that, we can still dance in the rain? What does this mean to me? Does it mean that it's a bad day because it's raining and I'm going to be stuck in traffic? Or does it mean, oh, good, my plants are going to be watered? And then the third thing is, how do you react, or what action do you take? So in any situation, like when I was told I had skin cancer, right? That was a very, oh my God, I focused on the fact that, like, this is really bad and I could die. And it meant to me that I had to do something to change my life immediately. And the action that I took was to start searching for those answers. Some other people, when they get bad news, and that's my example, but sometimes, and I've had this happen where I get bad news, where it actually sends us worse into depression or anxiety or fear. And so you sit there and you're focusing on the negative, what was bad. It means that the world's going to end and there's nothing you can do about it. And your reaction is just to go deeper into sadness and depression. So if you break that apart, you're basically asking yourself a couple questions every single time you go through some sort of decision-making process. And ultimately, I like to start my day, and this is how I help everybody jump into emotional fitness, with something physical. Because as much as we can react when something happens, if you change your physiology, the way you react when you hit with news is going to be different, right? For example, if you're sad and upset or angry, go for a sprint. Nobody can be sad or depressed when they're going for a full sprint, right? You're just like, I just need to breathe, right? So all of a sudden, your mind changes because you're doing something physical. Then I like to sit down and ask myself empowering questions. So in my book, I go through how kind of reframe questions. Instead of why me, why can't I make more money? Why does nobody love me? It's, okay, how can I make more money? What do I need to do to make more money? How can I find even more love in this moment? How can I appreciate what I have right now? So certain keywords right there, switching why me to how or what can I do, asking things like even more. It's an assumption in your brain. By assuming that you have it already, it empowers you to find more of it. And then right now, it allows you to experience it more in the moment. When you ask yourselves these empowering questions, then right after that, I like to write down my goals for the day. I do what's called a power action list. So I write down 3 things that are going to move the needle. I believe strongly in the 80-20 rule. And the way I use it is 80% of our results are going to come from 20% of our actions. The key is knowing which action to take. So I write down 3 actions I'm going to take. Okay, if I take these 3 actions and accomplish these 3 goals, it's going to move the needle. I'm going to accomplish everything else will fall into place, but it's going to make my day a successful day. So when you're going through your day and you're struggling to stay focused or motivated, that's the way I like to start. But of course, just like anybody, we have bad days. We've got to learn from it. So one of the things you can do is you can write down, say you're trying to change an emotion or an experience. You get angry a lot. You know, something bad happens at work, you're angry at your sales team. Something bad happens at home, you're angry with your wife or significant other. Your kids don't do something, you're angry with them, and you're always responding with anger. How do you change that? First step, become aware of it, write it down. Any instance where you feel anger or you explode with anger, you do something and you yell at somebody, write it down. All right. Rank that on a scale of 1 to 10. How did I do that? Well, how well did I respond to this? Oh, wow, that was horrible. Like that's a 1. Did I respond to this? That's a 3. And then very specifically, you want to write down how you want to respond. Once you write down how you want to respond, you want to go through a series of like, okay, if this happens again tomorrow or the next day, this is how I'm going to respond. And then visualize yourself actually doing it. Right. So the process of visualization is very powerful. Athletes use this all the time. It allows them to get more confidence when they're going to the free throw line. Do this for how you're going to respond. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you're going to say, oh, I hope they get to their destination safely. Or I'm so glad they didn't hit me. Versus, go F yourself, right? Like it. So visualizing how you're going to respond, if you anticipate what's going to happen to you and you're prepared to change that course of action, that's how you start to shift and move the needle over. And overall, I mean, you look at different exercises you can do, and I try to get people set up for success from emotional fitness standpoint. It's all about that preparation is power.
Yeah, I love that. I can already see, I mean, that's a ton of information. I kind of wish I was taking notes, but fortunately when it goes live, I'll be able to pause and play along with our guests because that was awesome. Thinking about, people who are always in that kind of right frame of mind, right? You typically are going to think about these are ambitious people, or at least they're aspirationally ambitious at the very least. How do you juggle? Because there's a lot of people that are super ambitious, but then they hit that burnout phase. And I'm curious, what's your go-to framework for deciding what not to do to help avoid that burnout?
Oh, I love the way you phrase that too. What not to do. The power of saying no. A lot of times, just being able to avoid burnout is to say no to things that aren't going to serve you, right? I'm a yes guy, right? I want to do more with life. I want to accomplish more. I say yes a lot. But when I learned how to say no to things, that's what really changed my life and allowed me to focus on things that are really important. It's all important, but you got to give yourself, okay, hey, I'm going to do this podcast. I'm not going to do that one. Or I'm going to do this trip with my friends, but I'm not going to do that one. I think for me, one of the best frameworks that I've worked out in my entrepreneur journey is monotasking. And what I mean by that is everybody's trying to do a million things all at the same time. Well, today I blocked out an entire day for podcasting. I'm in the podcasting zone. I'm ready to go. I've got my notes. I've got my setup. I'm not trying to do podcasting, close a deal, record and edit at the same time. I'm not trying to share stuff on social media all over the place. Like your mind can't stay focused on everything. People who say they multitask are actually probably just really efficient at doing one task quickly, right? But I believe momentum matters. And if you build momentum, that's how you become more successful. So I block out chunks of time, 4 to 6 hours, and I just do one thing. That's how I wrote my book.
It's great advice. And it's funny, I had a guest on about 3 months ago, and they were talking about how multitasking is not a thing and the human brain isn't capable of doing it. So that resonates with me now twice. So clearly something that I probably need to learn from myself. When you talk about, or when you think about the people that you've had the opportunity, to coach and work with, are there 2 to 3 behaviors amongst your top people that just keep showing up, that it's just a trait that, either you're teaching them or it's something they come to the table with that really differentiates them?
So interesting, because I've also interviewed people who have built $1 million to $1 billion businesses, right? Like Tom Bilyeu, like I said, Bedros Keuilian built a $200 million empire. These guys and people that I talk to, all the high achievers, they view failure differently. Everybody, thinks about, oh, if I failed, I can't do it. I'm not going to be successful. I've tried everything. A lot of people, when they say I've tried everything, really tried about 2 to 3 things over and over again. And what's the definition of insanity? It's trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. What's different is these guys continue to work hard. They never stop, and failure is just a learning point. They pivot, they pivot, they pivot until they find success. And I always say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And most people that I talk to have been preparing for years. And when that one opportunity knocks, they're ready to take advantage of it. So I'd say it's hard work consistently over years, doing the stuff that nobody likes to do, but it's necessary. Pivoting on failure and learning from it. And when we talk about emotional fitness, that's the term I coined for mental toughness. But all these people that are great at what they do, they don't get bothered by the little things in life. They stay focused on their goals. You know, some people on a sales team, every time they get denied a sale, it's the end of the world. They're not going to make it very far, right? But in business, you're getting denied all the time. Can you handle that rejection? Handling rejection is not like this shield you build up. It's the ability to handle that, learn from it, and move on. And so their mental toughness, their emotional fitness is top notch.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to just kind of double click into that a little bit. So talking about that, that fail, like failure is a learning point. Like I know there's so many people, especially as you talk to like entrepreneurs and athletes, people who are running at a high level, like this all or nothing thinking. And they think that if they haven't, done these amazing things, that it's a failure. Like how do you coach them to know that that failure isn't the end, but just like you said, a learning opportunity to pivot to the next thing? Because that's tough for a lot of people.
Especially if you're really good at what you've done for your entire life and you've never really experienced true failure. But stories are the best way to teach people. And there's so many examples. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, right? So you sit there and you're like, the greatest basketball player ever, or debatable, but I think he is. I don't, not debatable for me. MJ's the GOAT. But he got cut from his high school basketball team. Then you look at Tom Brady was picked as 199, right? Like in the NFL, goes on to win 7 Super Bowls. You share these stories to show them that, hey, look, everybody's going to fail at some point in their life. The difference between what makes you a champion and what makes them a champion is whether you get back up, whether you keep going forward. And at high levels, it's that slight edge that makes all the difference. And so the faster you can get back up and get over your own ego, right? That you can't fail. You got to be able to step outside yourself and learn from it. The sooner you're going to be able to get better than them, because everybody's running for the first place. Everybody wants to be the best.
Yeah, for sure. I want to maybe just take this a little personal. Can you tell me about maybe a painful miss, that you had that became an opportunity to, do a systems upgrade, or what did you measure or change when you kind of face that thing the next time around?
My biggest miss, is at 26 years old, I was a board certified orthodontist and I felt like I was failing at life. That for me was, I was miserable. I was depressed. I was making money, but not really enough to survive. It was crazy, like with student loans, and I was working and I was driving all over the place. And so we've already talked about that. I could use many examples in entrepreneurship. Like when I started my first practice, right? Start my first practice. I'm like, great. I'm going to buy all the equipment. Okay. Because that's exactly what I should be doing. Don't get clients, go buy all the equipment. So it's expensive in orthodontics, by the way. So when I first started, it was, we'll say maybe $25,000, $30,000 for this fancy scanner, $70,000 for an x-ray machine, chairs, a couple $100,000 in. And, 6 months in, I had clients, but I was not having fun, and I was really hating it. And this is even before I had my memento mori moment. And the hardest part for me was to acknowledge that, because I felt like I was failing, but I just wasn't into it and I didn't want to do it. That was the hardest part for me. So I figured out a way to get out of it. I grew it, I got rid of it, sold some of the pieces of equipment, cleaned my hands of the debt, and I moved on. And that was one life lesson that I've continually had to relearn, is that sometimes just because something's hard doesn't mean like I have to keep going. That I might fail at it, but might be why am I failing at it? Because I'm a hard worker. I don't stop working. I continue working until I get success and until I achieve my goal. So I've had many setbacks, but I don't look at them as failures. When I'm not into it and I'm failing at something, it's because I'm not putting my full weight behind it. I'm not putting my full energy behind it. And so pivoting, that was a good learning experience for me, because I stepped back and I said, is this what I want to do for the next 40 years of my life? The answer was no. And accepting that I wanted to change that was one of the hardest things. But then when I did that and I stepped into entrepreneurship and business and, success and mindset, emotional fitness, I found out that, hey, this is exactly what I should be doing.
Frank, when you just talk in general, and I listen to you, emotional fitness just it oozes from you. Like you have this way about you, and I can just see why this resonates so well with you. Well, this next question, it might be a little bit self-serving, so if it is, I apologize. But I'm just curious, as a author, what is your editorial filter when you wrote, Unleash Success? Like, how did you choose topics? How did you choose the right guests? And how did you make sure that you were serving, who your audience was, and not just the algorithm?
I believe in the ability to learn something from everything, even if it's an example of what not to do. So I wanted a scope of people and a type of persona that was going to shift the mold and break through. So I basically created a set of standards. I wanted people that were entrepreneurs who had overcome some sort of difficult time, who didn't necessarily make millions of dollars, but we're making 500,000 to a million, and now it's more like a million, just because, well, we could say inflation. But at the end of the day, my goal was to help other people understand the tools and strategies for success while giving them the story, because I do believe people learn in stories, that would empower them from a mental and emotional perspective to accomplish their own goals. And so each person I brought on to emotional fitness has always been able to provide that and give a great story that has moved our audience to want to change their own life. Because if you're not a powerful storyteller and powerful communicator, you're not going to be able to sell your product to get people to invest in your business, become a client of your business. And ultimately, that has been probably the reason I believe Unleash Success has taken off, is because of better storytelling ultimately.
Hmm. So such a powerful thing. I 2 weeks ago I had a episode that was talking about the art of storytelling, and it was really about crafting your story. And I think people don't fully appreciate how important that is. And it actually makes me feel good that you just said that, because it makes me know at least what's coming out is it's going to make sense to a lot of people. Um, what's the next 3 to 5 years look for you? Like when I think about all the things that you've done, from the time that you were, discovered the melanoma to the writing the book and all these things that you've done since then, like what is the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you go with the book, the speaking, the show, and what impact do you hope to, have with people, in the lives that they lead?
Uh, Excellent question. For me, the next 3 to 5 years are going to be about helping other entrepreneurs and leaders more powerfully communicate their message to the world. People always ask me about branding. People always ask me about how to grow a podcast. And I believe that if you can communicate more effectively, that will grow on its own. And ultimately, the reason I want to do that is because my true goal is to build more leaders. Before I had kids, I always believed that the world needed more leaders, and that people who are emotionally fit were going to be better leaders, because if you can't lead yourself first, you're not going to be able to lead anybody else. When I had kids, I realized that more than ever, especially with social media these days, there's anybody with a mic and a camera is getting attention. But the problem is a lot of it's garbage. It's not helpful, or it's not true. It's half truths and misinformation. And I want to help guide the next generation, which will be, and my kids. I want to make sure that they grow up in a great world led by better leaders than we have today. And it starts for me by helping other people project their message and impact the world around them. So for me, it's taking this and expanding it out in the world even more so that we can build better leaders.
It's a good answer. I like that. Corey, when this episode goes live, I know there's going to be people that want to connect with you. Are there, yeah, and I'll add all of your socials and links and all that stuff in the release. But for anyone that's listening and they're auditory and they don't write anything down and just have memory, like, is there one place or one area you want them to go to learn about you or to connect with you?
Yeah, probably the easiest thing to would be just to go to our YouTube channel at Corey Corpodian. And you can check out the videos there. You can learn about emotional fitness. You can see the interviews. That would be the best place.
Awesome. Well, Corey, listen, it's been a real treat. I think what you're doing is just an impactful and important message, and I love it. And thank you so much for taking time out to be on the show today.
Ron, awesome interview. Thank you, man.
You bet. For everyone else, emotional fitness. You heard it from the man. If you need some, go check out his YouTube page. I think you're going to be impressed. Keep projecting that grandeur. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.